Hi, my name is Diablo and welcome to an extra video I'm doing on my channel explaining some of the mechanics of the game. I might be making more of these if there's a demand, but for now it's just this one. What is this about? Trains. I recently got asked by a viewer to explain how to signal a T-section. I started thinking about this question and how best to explain it, when I found myself wondering why the question was asked in the first place. Now, to some of you, most of this stuff is going to be obvious and logical, as it was to me, but yet I still see so many questions regarding the rail system that it got me wondering why. Why does a system that has seemingly pretty clearly defined rules still spark so many questions? This in turn made me think about the basics of the system and how well they were explained or, presented in the game. And honestly, I found it lacking. So I decided not just to answer the question of how to signal a T-section, but to try and explain the entire rail system, and that way the reasoning behind the signaling would also be made clear. I'll be putting timestamps into the description so you can jump to any section that you are most interested in, or of course you could just, watch the whole thing. Now, I'm putting a disclaimer right here saying I might forget to explain something. I might even get something wrong. Don't shoot me. If you think I've missed something, or if you've got I've gotten something completely wrong, please let me know in a calm and constructive manner, and I will answer your questions and concerns in the comments. Or, I might even make a follow-up video. Having said that, let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Number one, there are two parts to a train: the locomotive and the cargo wagon. Usually when people talk about trains, they actually mean the locomotive, but for ease of use, I will be using the terms interchangeably throughout this video. Number two, locomotives can only travel in one direction, forward, unless, of course, driven manually. This might seem obvious, but there are still people who wonder why their locomotive is not traveling between stations on a one-way track when they have only one locomotive attached, or two, but not fueled, and why it's not working. Number three, always place your train stops and signals on the right-hand side of your track in the direction you are going. Now, if I'm traveling from south to north, visually, I would put my train stop on the right-hand side of the track. However, if I were to be traveling from north to south, I would visually, let me make that clear, visually put the train stop on the left-hand side of the track, because the direction of travel is now opposite as well. If you're trying to figure out where to put train stops and signals, just follow the track with your finger and then try and make a right-hand turn. That's the side you put the stop on, or the signal. So if I go down, I make a right-hand side, that's the side I make my signal or stop. Also, if you hover over a train stop or a signal, you can see the direction of travel the train has to be going in order to be able to utilize this train stop or signal. Number four, tracks without signals can be traveled on both ways. Number five, tracks with signals can only be traveled on in the direction that the signals have been placed, keeping in mind the right-hand side rule, effectively making this a one-way street. This means that if there's a signal anywhere along the track, all connected tracks will adhere to the rules of this signal, even if this signal is in a conflicted state. I will explain conflicted states a little later on. Number 6. Trains will always try to take the shortest route possible, or rather go to the closest station. What some people don't know is that you can have multiple stations with the same name. This will cause trains in your system to go to the first available station that is not already being used by another train. It will always try to go to the nearest station possible, or rather I would say the one with the shortest route possible that's available. This way you can send multiple trains to loading or unloading stations with the same name and have the system decide where best to go. Moving on to signals. There are 3 kinds of entities you can place on or beside a track: train stops, rail signals, and rail chain signals. Let's start with the first one. Train stops are fairly simple devices. You place it down in the direction of your rail system, and trains can use it to stop at that location. There really isn't much more to it than that. I'm not going to go into the whole circuit thing right here, because that might, be an entire video on its own and would veer too much away from the core of this video. Rail signals are also quite simple. You place these down whenever you would like a train to stop if there is traffic ahead of this signal. A rail signal creates what is known as a block, but I will get into blocks a little bit later on. Rail signals have 4 states that they can exist in, represented by 3 colors. The first one is green. This means the block ahead is clear of traffic. The second is yellow. This means the block ahead is about to receive some traffic and it's coming from the block behind this signal. The third one is red. This means the block ahead either has traffic incoming, as indicated by another signal that is yellow, or has traffic already inside of that block. The fourth and final state is where the signal has all 3 colors flashing in succession. This means the signal is in a conflicted state. Again, I will explain a conflicted state a little bit later on. Now, rail chain signals is where a lot of the confusion tends to start. Rail chain signals are used when you would like to communicate the state of a block ahead of the current rail chain signal block. Usually, this is used when you would like to know if the one-way track with multiple offshoots ahead has any free tracks available. This way, you can look ahead quite a bit and decide, or rather have the system decide, if the train should wait or continue. For instance, in a large unloading station, the rail chain signal checks if there are any free stations, and if so, sends a signal down the line so incoming trains know where to go. Rail chain signals can be, as the name implies, chained together and have 5 states they can exist in, represented by 4 colors. The first one is green. This means the block ahead and the next block is clear of traffic. The second one is yellow. This means the block ahead or the next block is about to receive some traffic. The third one is red. And this means the block ahead or the next block either has traffic incoming, as indicated by another signal that is yellow, or has traffic already inside that block. The fourth one is blue. This is used when there are multiple signals ahead of this one and indicates that one or more, but not all of the blocks ahead have traffic in them. Another way of looking at this is blue indicates that there is a clear path ahead, but not to all blocks. The fifth and final state is where the signal has the red, yellow, and green colors flashing in succession. This means the signal is in a conflicted state. So to recap the two signals. Rail signals check the block ahead to determine if there is or is going to be traffic in that block. And the rail chain signals check the block ahead and the state of the next signal to determine if there is or is going to be traffic in that block or the one ahead. Now, I've mentioned blocks and conflicted states a couple of times already, but what are they exactly? Well, a block is what is created when a signal gets placed. The state of the block indicated by the signal is always after the signal that is indicating and ends at the next signal. To put it in simpler words, a block is a section of tracks between two or more signals. So if I place one here and I place a signal there, this is now a block because it starts with this signal and ends with that signal. A conflicted state is when a block ends at its own beginning. So let's take this section here, for instance. Let's say this is a part of a larger rail system with a two-way system. So this one is going up and this one will take all the trains down. Now, let's say I've, made a roundabout right there. So trains go up, go around the roundabout and go back down. This is important for you to know. I'm doing this like this on purpose because it shows that even though the train can't actually make this 90-degree turn, signals will definitely make this turn, will travel along this line, even though the train itself cannot. It is important to know because that means that, as I said earlier, if I place down a signal, everything behind this signal is now part of that block. So until the next signal. So this part is, this section is part of that block, but also this and this entire side is also part of this block. Everything behind the signal is now part of this block. For example, if I were to extend these like this and like so, and then out to, I don't know, there, something like that, all these bits are part of the block that this signal creates. But what happens if you start a block that ends within itself? Well, let's say I have another roundabout here, and I start and I connect the start of the block, which is there, to the end of the block, which is there, like this. Now this signal is in a conflicted state. Why? Because its start is connected to its end, meaning it will not be able to sense the difference between the two blocks, because there aren't two blocks, there is only the one block. This is the same for rail signals as it is for chain signals. How can you resolve this? Well, quite simply by adding another block that separates the beginning from the end. Just make sure that the beginning and the end of this block are separated by another block. And now your problem has been solved. Because this block starts here, goes all the way around, but ends right there. This block, however, starts there and goes all the way around and ends right there, meaning that this block is separated from this block, so it can now tell the difference between the two blocks and react accordingly. So now that we know the basics and the different kinds of signals, let's move on to the next step, signaling. So the first thing you might want to know is, how do I signal a straight line? And maybe even more importantly, why would I need to signal a straight line? Because, it's a straight line. I don't have any offshoots or, trains crossing it, or I don't know. Why can't I just put a signal at the start and the end of the line, and have I don't know, roundabout there or a T section there, and just signal that, and just leave this straight bit alone, because there's only one train going there. Well, that's exactly the point. There's only one train going there, because if I place a signal there, hang on, there, this now means that as soon as a train enters this section, for as long as it's on this section, for all I know, this could be a 2-kilometer long section, no other trains can enter this section. Meaning that for the entirety of the travel time, this part of the rails is not being used. Well, that's fairly inefficient. You would like to, if there's room, have another train going in the same direction, but you don't want them to collide. Well, what you can do is you can add rail sections like this. Now, this section from this to this signal is indeed occupied. However, if I now place the train beyond that signal, the next train is now allowed to enter this block, meaning that if you space these signals out correctly, multiple trains can travel quite close to each other at full speed on the same line, instead of waiting for a train to clear an entire section of track before the next one is allowed to enter. So dividing a long straight section of track into multiple blocks will allow you to have a better throughput of that line. Moving on to roundabouts. Now, roundabouts are a little bit special, but if you think about it with the basics that we have learned earlier, it is actually not that difficult to understand. As we are aware, we will always place traffic signals on the right-hand side of the track in the direction we are moving. So if we use a two-way system, which is usual for a roundabout system, if the train is coming in on this track, I will place a signal there to make sure that once the train has entered this roundabout, another one cannot enter until it has cleared this roundabout. Unfortunately, the nature of a roundabout means that there are multiple entrances. So we have to make sure that those are also blocked off. Meaning that if we follow this line, we need to check, okay, so this is an entrance. We need to make sure that that's also turning to red to make sure that no traffic comes from this side when this train is moving at high speed to go there. Same as this one, and same as this one at the bottom, because all entrances have to be blocked off at the same time to make sure that no collisions happen. What you've effectively done at this point is you've blocked off this entire roundabout and made it into one block that can be used by one train only. Now, the next step is to determine, well, if I have a train waiting to enter this roundabout, when will I allow it to, enter? So you'll have to look at all the exits, which is for this direction of travel would be this one, this one, this one, and of course the one beside it, this one. As soon as the train leaves the roundabout and passes this signal, all signals will turn green again and the next train can enter. Of course, this again counts is for all the exits that are here. So this is basically all the lights that you would need at a roundabout. Now you could of course divide it up even further by placing lights at the halfway points of this, the roundabout, allowing potentially more train traffic to use the roundabout at the same time. For instance, if the train was going there, then why should this train going there be blocked off? But that's a personal preference, and trains move relatively fast enough for that not to be a problem, especially in the early game. Of course, if you've got a giant base with, you know, dozens and dozens of trains going, especially if they are very long, you might want to reconsider that and section them off so they can use different sections of this roundabout at the same time. Right, moving on to the actual question that was asked that sparked this video. T-sections. Right, so here we have a single line T-section. Basically, it's not really that different from any of the other things we've already seen, as that we want to block off this area so only one train can use it at a time. I will show you another way where multiple trains can use it, but you have to wonder if that's what you really want. So let's say a train is coming from this side. Our traffic, I should say, is coming from this side and has to be able to go there and has to be able to go there. Okay, so in that case we would place a signal down there, place a signal down here so that we've blocked off this area, and also place a signal up here so that now this entire triangle is one block, meaning if a train enters this side, let me get a little bit closer, like this, then no other train can enter this section from this side. However, since this is a single track system, other trains might be coming from the other side. Now, as we have signaled this only with one-way traffic, aka from this side up to there and from this side to the right, trains that would actually try and come from this side would not be allowed, because this section has got no pathing for it, because there's no signal on the right hand side of this direction of travel to allow this train to even enter this section. However, what if we want to have this train that goes to a mine, for instance, also be able to go back the same way? Well, in that case, we'd have to double our signaling for both sides. Now, this train cannot enter this section. The problem with a single line, however, is exactly what you just saw. If I have a train that wants to go this way to the right, and I have a train that wants to go this way to the left, it can drive all the way up to this traffic light, rail signal, and then block the direction of travel for this train, because this was okay to go into this section because there's no trains here, but then when it wants to go onto the next section, it gets stuck because there's already a train there. This is exactly the reason why we want to use chain signals, because chain signals can convey the state of a section ahead to earlier junction points quite easily. Meaning that if I now place this train here, so it has entered this section, this one-way street, which it basically is. Well, it's a two-way street, but you can only use one way at a time. The train that is trying to enter from this side, let me just quickly make a extra bit here. Let's say this one and this one. The train that is trying to enter from this side now has to wait here until this train has actually passed this point, so then it can travel where it needs to go. This is why you want to use rail chain signals. However, what I would always suggest is to use a two-way system. Now, I've heard arguments for using a one-way system like this, but personally I prefer a two-way system like this. Now, when we block off this section for incoming traffic from this side going to that side, or incoming traffic coming from this side going to that side, when this train passes this way, it will never be in the way of this train trying to go that way. This saves you a lot of signaling and a lot of headaches trying to figure out why it's going wrong. Okay. So this now is a two-way system with a one-way exit. So why do we have this then? Because if I can't use this exit or this exit, because the train is only allowed to go up, why have these rails here? Well, because, and that's the next part of this, we can go from a two-way system to a one-way system for, a variety of reasons that you might want to. For that, you would need to tell the system, okay, this part of the track is now become a two-way system. So it can enter and it can leave, because it has signals on both sides. However, it will always adhere to the rules of the system itself, meaning that if a train wants to leave here, as you can see, it can, because it has two signals up here. It will check the signals ahead and see that, okay, I can leave this way because there's a signal saying I can move here. It can leave this way because it has a signal saying, all right, this is the direction of travel that I can move in. However, it cannot go this way because this signal indicates that there's only one direction of travel allowed, which is the other way around, in the opposite direction, meaning the train will not go in this direction. Same for the other side. This signal will check, can I go here? It will see that there is only one signal indicating the direction of travel is opposite as to what it wants to have, because there is no signal on this side, and this side I cannot use this section, effectively making this single line railway into a two-line railway. Now, there is one addition you can make here. Let's say that a train wants to go from this section up here to this section. Now, it will enter this block here, like so, and be traveling up there. As you can see, this light indicates that this block has now been occupied by traffic, as does this light, as well as this light. So this entire section can no longer be used until this train leaves this section. Now, let's say you've got a very long train and this has like, 4, 5, 6 wagons behind it. That might take quite a long time before it's actually, cleared this section. And all the while, the train that is waiting here to go across cannot move. How can we prevent this? Well, if we section off the right areas of this part of the intersection, like so, now I have effectively freed this part up, as you can see by the green indication on the traffic light on the rail signal, for normal traffic to continue. Because if this train takes a long time to go there, then only this block is occupied and cannot be used by other trains. But this part before this light is fine. The train can go wherever it wants to go. So this is an optional way of signaling to make it a little bit more throughput friendly, let's say. Now to show you all of this in action, I have prepared a little area that shows off all of this in real time. So we have roundabouts, we have straight sections, single line, we have double lines, we have T sections, and everything, of course, is lit by signals. As you can see, these chain signals switching frequently between blue, yellow, green. Well, not always green because there's a lot of traffic in this area. There's a green one, and red. That is because this entire section has been set up with chain signals up until where the station, let's say, starts, which has a normal rail signal. The exit for the stations on the right also have chain signals, so they know that when something is in this section, the train will not leave the station until it is cleared to do so. There is a logic behind this. I think it is the train that has been waiting the longest gets preferential treatment, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So, I should say the signal that has been waiting the longest. As you can see, by using these signals in the correct manner, and there was a nice example of a train going up and a train going straight, like I showed earlier. Using the signals in the correct manner like this will make sure that these trains will never collide and will always wait for each other to clear the track. And to be honest, I think it's kind of a pretty thing, seeing all these trains moving in unison. That's it for now. If you would like to know more, please let me know in the comments. I will, of course, be answering any questions that may arise. All that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you did, subscribe to the channel, comment down below if you have any questions or suggestions or ideas. My name is Diablo, and I'll see you next time.